Let's do another one-page site tutorial with Elementor Pro. And it's going to be a pretty simple one, nothing fantastic, but I know a lot of people like this. Let's do it now. Now, before I do anything, I do want to make clear that if you are going to start adding images into your website, I strongly recommend you use bulkresizePhotos.com. It's a website, it's free to use because it's going to convert your images into WebP, and that can make a massive difference to the size of your images. What you do is you go to the website, click on choose images. So I've got a load of images here, and you can actually see the sizes over here. So there's quite a varied range there. I'm going to set the size to be 100% because if I want to resize it, I'll do that in the media library. But the key bit is setting this to WebP. Leave the image quality as 80%, and if it's transparent, it will bring that through as well. When I hit start, there's about 16 images here. Look how quick it's done it. And it's also downloaded it to my downloads folder as well. We've gone from 26 meg to 800 kilobytes. Most of these images are 1920 by 1080. That is less than 10%. What I can now do is add those images. Now, what we're going to do is just go over to pages and do add new. This is just going to be a really basic one-page website, by the way, okay? I'm just going to call this home boxing because it's a fake page, by the way, all right? But no, I'm just going to call it boxing because it is a fake page, and I'm going to hit edit with Elementor. Now, I have gone to the settings down here in the bottom left, and I've set the hide title to be on, and I've set the page layout to be canvas, mainly because if I hit default, this is a test website, and it's already got a pre-built header and footer in, and I don't need to see them, so I'm going to just put it as a canvas, which means there's no header footer template applied. If it's just a one-page website, you can get away with just having Elementor Canvas. But for testing purposes, that's why I've done it, just so that you understand what we're doing. What we are also going to do is go over to our bar at the top there, go to Site Settings, and I am now going to go to Global Colors, and I'm now going to set my colors. This is a test website, so I've got loads of fake colors in it, but I'm going to add some in now just to help us with what we're doing. So I've gone and added in 4 colors here that I'm going to be using on the website. It's a very good idea to set them. Normally, you would have done them up here in your primary, secondary, and stuff like that. It's also not a bad idea to do your global fonts as well. So you might have gone and decided that your primary font's going to be Railway, and your other fonts might be Lato, Roboto, Montserrat, whatever you're going to do. It's not a bad idea to do that, but we're just kind of building something out here. So let's just close that down. What we're going to do is we're going to add in a header. Even though this is a one-page website that I'm just building out, we are still going to add in a header. And the idea is that the header will be visible over the image, and then it will kind of change color as you're scrolling down. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add in a by the way, I'm still using sections and columns. This isn't a flex container video at all. This is just still section and column. So we're going to go in, and I'm actually going to add in just one section and one column. So we're going to go in, and I'm going to make this be full width. I'm going to say no gap for the column, and I'm going to set the height to be a minimum height of 0 for now, because I will control the margins and padding. What I will then do is add in a logo. Now, normally you would add in a logo, but I'm actually just going to add in some wording. Set this to be an REM, make it about a 2. Yeah, we'll go for about 1.6, and I'm going to make it be about a weighting of 3. In fact, I think weighting of 300 worked quite well there. And what I'm also going to do is go to Advanced, go to the width, and set that to be a custom. Now, when you do that, the headline or the heading is still in the top left position. But what it now means is if I go and drop in a nav menu like this, right, like this, the nav menu has now gone underneath. Now, on the nav menu, I've picked a fake menu. Do you really need a menu for a one-page scrolling website? If you're going to add in menu anchors, so for each one of these, they are actually linked into a menu anchor. So you click it and it takes you down the page. That would be fine. You could get away with not having that at all, okay, in all honesty, because you're just going to scroll up and down the page. So have a think about, do you need the menu? But of course, if you have more pages on your website, you would need to have a menu. Now, the reason why I've added this in is if I go to Advanced and also set this to be custom, they are now in line. I mean, it's not perfectly in line in terms of the vertical orientation, but they are now side by side. If I go back over to my column for the section and go to content for the column, horizontal align, I'm going to set to be space between. That is one section and one column, not two columns, okay? So you can think very methodically about not having to add in additional columns unless you really need it. I'm going to go back to this section and I'm going to set the vertical line to be in the middle. That is now nicely in the middle. I am going to change the font of this in a moment, but we'll do that in a short while. In fact, let me just go to nav menu. Let me get rid of the underline effect like that. And let me just go to style and I'm going to set the hover to just be as white. I'm going to leave the actual active color at the moment as what it is at the moment because everything will be white eventually. Right. So in a nutshell, that's just doing a very basic headline. You could also add in an image as well. So if I wanted to drop an image in, say, over here, it will go above everything. If I was to go and pick this image here, for instance, and set it to be a full, always set your resolution to be full. Otherwise, you're not going to get the full resolution. But in your image bit over here, I might now set the pixel to be, say, let's go for 150. Well, that's way too big. 110, and I'm going to set the maximum width to also be 110, which means no matter how big your screen, that image will never get bigger than what it is at the moment. If I go to advanced and set this to also be custom, can you see what it's done now? It's basically put them in line with the others, but there is a space between. What if you want this to be next door to the wording? Well, this is where you would now actually adjust your width. So if I was to say, right, the pixel width of this is going to be, say, 115, so it's 5 more than the actual image, I might now go over here and start to mess around with the size of this as well. And this is where you have to play around a little bit with how big it is. I would probably say make your nav menu bigger, not the word boxing, because that makes more sense because your nav menu is probably going to be bigger anyway. But you can start to reposition. This is all still one section, one column. Let me just undo all of that. So that's a very basic heading. Now let's go in and add in the image that's actually going to sit behind this. I'm going to add in another new section. This section is going to be a boxed width, and I'm going to make this be about 1100. Even though it's a boxed width, the image that sits inside the section will be the full width. So let me just set the columns gap to be no gap as well for now. Let me go to the style for the section and let me pick one of my images. We're going to go for this one here. I'm going to set the position to be center center. In fact, I won't go center center. I'm going to go top center. I'm going to make this be a fixed background. And I'm going to say that there is no repeat and it is a cover image. Now, at the moment, you can't really see the image. It's not doing anything at the moment, right? Yep. And that's because there's no content added in here at the moment. You could, if you want, go to the section, go to layout, and I could now change the height of this. So I could just do this and drag and drop it, or I could be really specific and say VH100. That is now full height of the screen. Maybe I want to have the full height, the full impact in there. That's not a bad idea, actually, if you really want to get like across that this is what this website's about. So I would strongly recommend doing that if you're trying to get an impact statement in. What about the wording? Well, because the image is orientated more towards the left, I think it makes sense to have the wording on the right-hand side here. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to drop in a headline like that. Literally like that, a heading. And now I could, if I want, create some words and drop it in. Or if you've got Bertha AI, which you can get for free, 1,000 words per month. And I can click this over here. And I can say, right, what are we writing? I'm going to click all, and I'm going to scroll down and go to a unique value proposition. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to type in, female boxing like that, and hit generate ideas. If you put in a bigger description, Bertha will give you much better headlines or content, but let's just see what we get there. So I've just put in female boxing, and I've got the first and only female boxing gym in the. We got the first. Let's go for this one here. The first and only female boxing gym in the. So I want to click that, and that's now added it over to my headline. So I've gone for a white font. I've set the typography to be railway. I think 2.5 is a bit too titchsky. We'll go with 300 there, and I'm going to make it be about 600 in weight. And I think transform will make it uppercase like that. Now, at the moment, it is kind of starting from the left, and it starts to move over to the right. Let me go to the content. Let's shove this over to the right-hand side. Now, if I was to hit the chevron and do that, that's the current effect we've got. And because it is a fixed background in terms of the section, the words will move up and down over it, which is okay, but I feel like the words are going way over too much to the left-hand side. So if I go over to this headline now, and I go to advanced for the heading, okay, not for the column or the section. You can do it on the column as well, but I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to say that from the left-hand side, there is always going to be about 200 pixels gap away from whatever is on the left-hand side. So it's always going to be pushed over. Now, when I look at the wording over here and I go to my style, I'm just going to modify this now in terms of the line height. So I'm going to set it to be a 1 for starting off with, and I'm just going to increase it a little bit to something like that. I am going to reduce the top margin. So if I start to do this, can you see what's happening? It is now literally gone like that. Now, if you ever find that when you're doing this, and you will have noticed that even though I set the word boxing over here to be white, it's not actually appearing. If that ever happens, it's mainly because we created a section, the header section, then we did the section with the hero banner in, which is meant to be the impact one. That is built afterwards, so therefore this section can sometimes take precedent. But what you might want to do is just go back to your header section and set the Z index to be 999, and it forces everything to be ahead of whatever comes next, okay? Now this section here with the header, I am going to stay in advanced, go to motion effects, and set this to be a sticky top like that. That means it will always be at the top for the desktop, the tablet, and the mobile. That's not a bad thing to do as well. I'm also going to go back into advanced, and I'm going to give this a bit of padding now as well. So at the moment, it is kind of right up against the borders, as you can see there. So I'm going to go over to my left, and I'm going to give this about, 5 is way too small. Let's give it about 10 there. Let's just now view, how does this look? And that's looking okay. All right. I mean, I would probably say you probably do want to give this a little bit more padding, but this is just a tutorial I'm showing you at the moment. So as you scroll up and down, can you see what's happening here now? The problem is, though, is that when you get to this point here, the wording is now like overlapping with the heading or the menu, and it looks really ugly. Can you see how it's just kind of fighting for attention there? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to drop a little bit of code into here. If I go to the advanced tab for the section and go to custom CSS, I'm going to drop in a little bit of code here. So we're going to get that blue color. However, that color at the minute is activating straight away, but I don't want it to activate straight away. So if I go back over to where I have motion effects and we've set this to be a sticky top, can you see here it says effects onset? Notice over here, it says elemental sticky effects. Now, if we go back to motion effect, we have effects onset. So if I go here and I change this to be, say, 100, the idea is that that effect won't kick in until you get to like 100 pixels. Now, let me just go back over here to my section style. Just make sure that has got a fully transparent coloring. Yeah, there you go. So that's one thing sometimes even I forget. I'm just setting the color at the minute to be fully transparent, so there's nothing there. But the idea is that when you look at your page now, there's nothing there at all. And when you scroll 100 pixels, can you see there? The background now fades in like that. Now, before you continue or do anything else, I strongly recommend you check how this looks on your mobile. And you can see here that, look, I haven't styled it at all yet. So you would have gone over to your nav menu, for instance, and you would have gone, right, what's the toggle button going to be like? There we go. So we're going to toggle align this to that side. You're going to go in with a style, and you would have set your colors in accordingly for how it was going to look, and you drop down, you know the idea. You click it. I strongly advise that you do make sure you click full width as well. So in the very first tab there for the content for the nav menu, do click full width. So it kind of is the full width. And here's one of the dangers where when you have a hero banner, when you go to style, it is using the same image that you have in the desktop as well. You don't need to do that. What you really should be doing is using a copy of that image. So let me show you what I mean. So there we go. We've got an exact copy. I'm now going to edit that image and I'm going to scale it. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to set the height of this to be 700 and I'm now going to scale it. That is now scaled. Once that is scaled, hit back and then go back into it. Don't scale it and crop it at the same time because it doesn't always work. It will go back to the original size. So now I'm going to crop this image and I'm going to drag this in over here. Go down here where we have selection, which you can't see because my face is covering it like that. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to set this to be 500 in width. And I'm now going to move this to be a certain width, something like that. Something like that. So the person is still pushed over to the left a bit. And I'm now going to hit crop. Okay. And I am now going to hit save like that. Now we have a smaller image. Okay. It is 500 by 699 pixels. I'm now going to insert that. The desktop image is still the original. The mobile, because I picked a different image, is now the condensed image. There's a difference now in the size of it, and that can affect your page speed performance. And you really must consider that, okay? The key bit, though, is what is now happening with the wording. So let's now click on the heading, okay? I'm going to reset the sizing in terms of the margin and the padding. I'm going to say that from the left, I want to have at least 50 away from the left. I'm going to go to the style, go to typography, and I'm going to set this to be 2's a bit small. Yeah, we'll go with 2.1, something like that. Okay, now this is where you may want to have a think about again about the placement of what's going on here. So let's go to advanced, and from the top, let me give it about 100. Something, no, 100's way too small. Let's go with 200. And from the right-hand side, I'm going to go with about 20. So we push it in, something like that. So what we now get is you have your hero banner over here for your desktop. And then we have one for the mobile. So the image changes. By the way, please don't forget to do all your styling for your nav menu and all of that. You know, make sure you get your colors all in. What we're now going to do is move on to our next section. I already added one in here because I wanted to show you the scrolling effect. Let's now start a new section. And I'm going to drop in another headline over here. By the way, decide if your headlines are H1 or H2, especially when you're trying to fit keywords in. It can make a big difference. Now, I'm just going to copy this header here, and I'm going to get rid of this one. It's basically going to give me a copy of the sizing of the wording for the desktop and the mobile, so it's a bit less work. I will still adjust it, but it brings through the font family, the line height, and things like that. I'm going to change the styling of this now to be that dark blue color, something like that. I am going to change the size of this bow to be about 2. And I would say that maybe for the mobile, do we want to leave that as 2? Maybe I would say let's just drop that down to be about 1.7, so it's or 1.6, so it's not as big as what we had on the main hero banner. Now we are going to have, let me just add in a column here and just switch this over like that. This section over here is going to have columns gap default, as in fact, it will have no gap because I like to control how big things are. And I'm going to set the height of this just to be something like that, about 400 there. Now over in column 1, I am going to add in like a background color, and then I'm going to add an image over that. So I'm going to go over to this column. Now, what I'm doing, you could do to the section, because I'm going to add a hard gradient. However, I'm only going to do it to the column because I want to be in full-on control over how it looks and where it sits. So I'm going to go over to this column, go to Style, go to Gradient, and I'm going to pick 2 colors. I'm going to pick this a slightly brighter blue color, and I'm going to pick the second color to basically be no color or completely transparent. I'm also going to set the angle of this to be 90, like that. So the blue is on the left hand side, and I'm also going to set the location for this to be 40, 40. Something like that, so I get a solid on color. I mean, I could go for 50-50, to be honest. I could go 50-50. In effect, if both of these columns are 50% of your section, by me doing a 50 on a 50, it's now 25%. So it's just whereby I am ensuring that that is always going to be half of the second column. What I will now do is drop in a image. So we're going to drop in an image into column 2, and I'm going to now pick one of my images that I've got over here. I'm thinking that I might go for this image here, where again, we get that kind of boxing style viewpoint coming over. I'm going to go for full, and I'm now going to set the size of this, okay? I'm going to go for a pixel of, we are going to go with 300, and we're going to go with a 300 maximum pixel as well, just because I like to control how it looks like that. So we've got this bright blue, and it's coming right up against the image. What I want, though, is the height of this image to not be as... I don't want it to hit the top and bottom border of what we've got going on here. So there's two ways I could do it. I could either go in and increase the height of this section like that, but then it's going to kind of force everything down here and give us this white space. So that's not too good. Or the best way to do it is go to your column, go to your advanced, and I'm now going to give this some padding. And the padding will affect the image, not the gradient, because that is set for the column. If I was to do margin, then it would affect... Look, let me show you. If I was to go with 100, can you see now we get a 100 space? But if I go over here and I go 100 like that, it's now pushing the image down. Let's go with a 50 at the top and 50 at the bottom. So I've gone in and now set my section to be a full width, right? So it's kind of doing that. The danger with doing this approach, though, is that if you've got a really big screen, this person over here is going to be pushed over to the left the more bigger your screen is. So you might again want to go over to your column, and where we set some padding up, you might want to decide, okay, there will always be 150, or maybe 150 is a bit too big, 120 away from the left hand side. Okay, so if when I do this now, the image is always coming in off the left. I have to say though, I think 50 is way too small. Let's go with about, in fact, let's go with 80. Like that. The same thing I'm going to do to this column as well. So where we've said 120 from the left, I'm going to go in and I'm just going to set the padding over here to be 120 as well. Bear in mind though, this headline still has the left margin that we had before, so I'm going to zero that out. But I am going to give this column a little bit of breathing space as well, of about 40, something like that. So what we now have is something like that going on. Okay, so you got your wording over there, and we have this image coming in with a dark blue pattern. It's kind of a royal bluey color. I mean, part of me is feeling like I'm not liking that now because it's very striking, but then again, it kind of does still work. Now, what we're going to do over here is this is where we are now just going to want to change the wording we've got. So I'm going to take the wording we've got here, and I'm going to activate Bertha again, like so, and I'm going to go back over here, and I'm literally just going to pop in the words there. The first and only female boxing gym in the city, and hit generate ideas. So I'm reusing something that Bertha already gave me and just seeing, well, can we get anything else? That's probably not a good idea. So let me go back again, and we're now going to do a website subheadline, and I'm now just going to drop that word in again. So here we have a pretty good subheadline. I have to say, I really like what we've got there. So I'm going to take all of that, just copy it. The reason I copy it is because sometimes when you close, the words might disappear. And if they disappear, you just copy it back in again, like that. So there we have now loads of words. And I'm going to actually strip away some of those words and say, I'm actually going to do this. We offer a variety of classes, personal training, competitive, blah, 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 blah. I am going to change the style of this and now make it be a default. And I'm going to make the weighting of this be about 400, something like that. You don't have to always have a call to action, by the way, for your hero banner. You can add your call to action further below, okay? So I'm just going to drop this down to be about a 1.8. And I'm now going to also get a button, and I'm going to make it be a right-aligned button. I'm going to change the word. Now, I could pick whatever words I want over here. It's got click here. I could go over and hit Bertha, right? Go over here to Bertha again. And yeah, unless you know what your button is, you could click the button call to action widget. And I'm going to type box here and hit generate ideas again. And let's just see what Bertha gives us. If you know what your call to action button is, just go for it. Click me for your free box. I like that. Box yourself in. Don't be a box. Click here. That's quite funky, isn't it? But I'm going to say box yourself in. Okay. Let's just close that. Make sure the wording is up appearing. There we go, box yourself in. You would put in a hyperlink to a page, or it might even be a menu anchor or wherever you're going. And of course, don't forget to set your styling. Now, I do think that blue boldy color works really well here. And I'm just going to set a bit of boldness there. In fact, I'm going to make this be uppercase as well, something like that. I am also just going to add in a little bit of top margin of about 40. So what will happen is you get your header, you get this blue background, you get your image, and then you also get your subheader and your button over there. Now, before you go on, you really must check how this looks on the mobile, okay? So let's just go over to the mobile responsive mode. Oh, I should have mentioned, I do like to test in 378 whenever I'm doing mobile, because that kind of works for the iPhone XR, and if it works on that, it will look fine on the bigger sizes as well. Now, the problem we have, though, as you can see, is that we do have two columns. So column 1, instantly we get into this. Right, we get column 1, and then we have column 2 below, and it's looking very, very disorientated at the moment. So I'm just going to reset all the padding we have at the moment. I'm going to go with 40 from the top, 40 from the bottom here, but I am also going to now adjust my image. So I'm going to set the max width to be about 200. And we'll do the same there as well. Set the margin and padding for the column to be 0 again. Remember though, this headline did have like 200 margin pixels from when I was doing it updating the hero banner. So now I've just reset that. So let me go back into this column now. I am going to add, I would strongly recommend you always have about 15 or 20 pixels on the left and right. Otherwise, it's way up against the borders of your mobile phone or whatever you're doing. And I would say just go with 20 around like that. Make sure it's definitely on the left and right, and then decide what you're going to do from the top and bottom. So let's just go with 40, something like that. So from a mobile point of view, you've got your logo and all of that. You got your wording. You got this going on here with a bit of a break, but the blue boldness kind of makes it feel more than just an image over there. And then we got our wording coming in. Please do bear in mind, though, that the styling we got here, because it's brought through what we had above, which, well, it's not actually, I adjusted it to be 1.6. I'm just going to drop it down to be about 1.4. Yeah, I think 1.4 works better there. And I think that definitely needs to be bigger. Let's go with a 60 and 60 there, like that. Don't ignore the fact that spacing can make a big impact on how your website starts to work and look right. Okay. So what I'm now going to do is we are going to do another section below here. This section is going to be 3 columns, okay? It's going to be a full width. I mean, you don't have to go with full width, by the way, okay? You could, I mean, in fact, I won't do full width. No, we won't. We'll do a box, okay? And I'm going to go with a box of 1,100 like that. Behind this, okay, there will be, how do I want to put it? There will be another color put in for the section style. So I'm going to go in with the background type, and I'm going to give it this murky, bluey gray color, something like that. This will actually connect to the section above, so there's no break. So there's no like white spacing kick in. You can do that if you want, but I'm not overly fussed. I'm going to go here. I'm going to make sure the columns gap is 0. I'm going to set this to be fit to height based on whatever content goes on here. But I am going to give this some padding for the section. I'm going to go in and I'm going to say 80 for the top and 80 for the bottom. Why have I gone for 80? Well, that's what the sizes we've got here going on over here. So let's just double check. In fact, no, it was the column, wasn't it? 80 we've got going on there. So I want to kind of bring through the same sizing we've got there. I'm actually going to copy this image that we've already got. I'm going to paste that image there. So what we get now is another image, and I'm going to paste it over here, and I'm going to paste it over here. There we go. So what we've now got is we've got the same image coming over there. So what we've now got, basically you can see what's going on here. We've got some further images. This is the point where you may want to consider now, do you want to have images and you're going to add wording? So let's say I now added in a headline. The headline, I would have to use a negative top margin to make it overlap. Or do you add the image to the column? And that is what I would recommend you do. So let's get rid of those images. okay? And instead what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the column, and I'm going to go to style, okay? And I'm going to go to the background type, and I'm going to pick a image, and I'm going to set this to be a top center, mainly because I know the bulk of the image. If you go center, you might cut off some of the head. So I go top center. This will be a scroll image, so it's not going to change as it's not going to do the parallax effect. No repeat, and I'm going to set this to be a cover like that. Now at the moment, we can't see the image because we don't have any wording. So I'm now going to go over and I'm going to put a header in. Put this in the center. I'm going to set the style of this to be white, and I'm going to set this to be about 400 in weight, and we'll leave it as a normal at the moment. But I am going to go to the column, go to advanced, and I'm going to say that there must be a minimum of 30 on the left and right. In fact, there's got to be some padding on the bottom as well of about 30 as well. And for the top, well, we can now decide on how big it's going to be. So I might say, let's go with, say, 400. And you can now see what's going on there. We can now see the image. If I had gone with 500, you would have gone with that effect, okay? So 250, well, that was way too big, wasn't it? 250 is a bit too small. I think 350 works pretty well there. So what we could now do is add in a header. Again, we can either put in one that we already know of, or I could just click Bertha. I'm just showing you Bertha because I love how you can use it to help create content. We're going to go over here, and I'm just going to go with, let's go with the title to a benefits section, right? And I'm going to type in female boxing. Now, there's a couple of statements in here I quite like. I'm now going to, in fact, I'm going to get rid of this column completely. Get rid of this column as well. You'll understand what I'm doing in a moment. I'm going to go over to my column and set the margin now all the way around. Well, not all the way around, on the left and right, sorry. I'm going to set this to be 20 on the left and right. Because when I now duplicate this like that and then duplicate again, it now adds this bit of spacing between them. If you didn't do that, the columns would have been banged up against one another, which isn't a bad look, I have to be honest. I am also not liking this background color anymore. So I'm going to just drop this now to be the dark color like that. Now, the great thing about when you have columns is that you could now rearrange them. So I might want to extend this image because I like it more than maybe the middle one, or maybe the middle one has got much smaller text. Does it really need to be as big? Or if you want to just keep them equal, you could go back into your section over here, go to layout, go to structure, and then just, look, you can style them. Bear in mind though that when you do that, any margins or paddings you put in will need to be adjusted as well. So right now, here we have our wording. Now, when I go back up to here, the white spacing in the background is killing me a little bit because it just feels way too white with the effects we're going on at the moment. So I'm going to go over to my section, go to style, and I am going to give this a background overlay. Okay, and the reason I'm doing background overlay so I can mess around with the opacity, I'm going to go in and I am going to pick one of these images that we got here. So I'm going to pick this one here, like that. So there's an image there, and you can basically see that someone is training in the background. I'm going to set the position to be center. I'm going to make this be a fixed, no repeat, and it's going to be a cover. I'm also going to go to CSS filter, and I'm going to saturate this down to be a black and white. And what I'm also going to do now is go to the opacity, and I can even make it be really strong. Now, if you did that, I would say definitely change your font to be white. So, and I'm just having a bit of think here at the moment with what I quite like. And I have to say, having that kind of blocky color come in like that is working really, really nicely for me. So I'm just going to go over to the opacity, drop it a tiny bit like that. And I'm going to change this font to now be white. It's one of the beauties about working with websites, I think. You can really mix things up. Just check how this looks on the mobile. Please bear in mind, though, that when you are doing this, just like when I did the hero banner, I put in a copy of the image and I scaled it and cropped it. Please do that for anywhere else where you use backgrounds as well, because it can make an impact and a difference as to how your website looks, okay? Now, this column at the moment, you will have noticed that the moment I did that, this entire column, the gradient seems to have disappeared. Please don't be fooled by that. It hasn't actually done that. It's just sometimes Elementor makes out that it's not now doing the full-on gradient. It is doing it. It's just not showing it for you. So what we have now is the effect. However, because we have this image in the background, I'm going to go to my column where we have this blue color, and I'm now going to drop the transparency a little bit. So if I go with something like that, can you now see we still have the transparency effect, but it's now letting the image bleed through. So basically, look, can you see now? You can see the brickwork. It starts to bleed through there. So we're getting a bit more of a varied effect going on. How does that look in the mobile? Yeah, that's kind of okay. I mean, look, we've got the height of the person coming in over there, but I think that's pretty okay. I will say, though, that maybe we are seeing more of the male than the female, and this is meant to be very female orientated. So I'm going to go to background overlay, and I'm going to just say center right. So I'm just moving it over a little bit more like that. I don't know what your thoughts are at the moment, but that's kind of working a little bit better, and we do have the images. Now, you could make this background color be even darker if you so want. But what I'm going to do now is add in another section. And this one now could be a mixture of wording again. It could be further icons, or this might be where you explain your services a bit more. You could have further call to actions, or to get that symmetry or flow with your website, what you could do is copy the section 2, paste it in here, and then swap the 2 columns. So if I go to column 1 and I move it over, well, it helps if I do it like this actually. If I move column 1 like that, and now I've got a swap effect going in. If I go over to column 2, which was column 1, go to my style and swap this over now to be 270 like that. So you're basically rotating it. I go over to my section, go to my background overlay, and I'm now going to pick a different image. So I might go with something like that. Okay. So now we've got this image of like someone standing there while they're, in fact, I'm going to change this to be top left. In fact, there we go. We get the top left image like that. So this is where the head is cut off on the image, by the way. So don't start all jumping up and down. Now we have another image coming through. And, you could now, I'm not going to do the wording here. Okay. I've already kind of shown you bits of it. But here again, I've just reused another section we had above. The only slight danger we have, though, is that the wording here kind of worked okay. The wording here is not working so well because it is way over on the left-hand side. So let's go back over to this column, and now let's adjust it. So I had 120 and 40. Let's change that to be 40, and let's go with 120 like that. So what we now have is you're getting a bit more of a symmetry in the way it's looking. Of course, don't forget to check how this looks in the mobile. So I know that this section below, okay, is going to look fine because it's carrying on the theme that we had above. But the 3 that we did here are not looking so good now, mainly because they are following after one another like that. Look, you got 1, 2, 3. To be honest, that isn't a bad effect. But if you did want to create spacing, go to each column, right? And then just, you might need to adjust it here. So I might go with like 40, 20, 20 like that. So I'm adding in a bit of space. I'm actually going to undo that because I think the follow-on effect that we got here actually is quite nice. So what we have is a very, very basic looking website, by the way, right? Look, you have a transparent header. You get a color come in. We get some nice parallax effects going on there. Let me just do that again. Okay, and that is now like a pretty simple looking website in terms of how it looks. What I would say you definitely want to do, though, is kind of maybe, let me just take this section that we currently have, which was the hero banner section. Let me copy it. Let's go all the way to the bottom down here. I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm going to remove the fact that we had some minus negative top margin. I'm going to make this be in the center. Let's just adjust this as well, by the way. Okay, I'm just going to say that this is now a boxed width. It is already boxed width, actually, so that's okay. In fact, I'm going to make it be a smaller boxed width, something like that. I'm going to change the styling of the wording we've got here. Remember, always try and create your perfect section and columns with your font styling. So when you get it right, you can just replicate as you go forward. I'm going to change this to be a 2, something like that. I'm going to go in here now and I'm just going to get like a statement. I'm going to go for a website subheadline and I'm going to say the main title of this is female boxing that works. Okay, we'll just do something like that. Hit generate. Just see what Bertha gives us there. So I quite like that one. Let's just close that. Again, remember, if you are doing that, I always copy and just paste it back in again, just in case it removes it. It doesn't always do that, but just in case. And I'm now just going to change this background image. And I'm now going to pick a more colorful image that we could go with one of these images like that. In fact, top center. I'm going to make this be a scroll effect so you can actually see it. And I'm now going to also add in a background overlay as well, because the image, the color of this doesn't fit with the branding or the palette we've got. So I'm going to go in and I'm now going to go with, say, the bluey color though. In fact, I'm not sure about that one. Let's go with that. Yeah, it's a bit too... There we go. We'll go with something like that. There we go. So we can still see the image and we can still see the wording as well. So what you're doing is you're continuing on the vibe that we're going on here. So when you have a hero banner, the whole point was an impact statement. And then you start to put in some descriptions and wording. And obviously, I mean, this is still a heading. I must point out, don't just always keep using heading. Use text editor as well. You got to mix it up a little bit. But over here, it's not a bad idea to also add in another mid-hero banner. Remind people of what this is all about. What's the benefit of it? What are you trying to get across? Yeah, look, I mean, I've gone for center left, but you still can't see it properly. Make sure you put in a copy of the image and scale and crop it accordingly. This video wasn't meant to be a full-on expert way of user experience or anything, but I just wanted to show you really quickly again, just how very quickly and easily, using Bertha as well to create some content, you can create a website that kind of works. And we're not using templates or anything here. You're just building from scratch. And you can make sure it works on the mobile as well. Of course, you'd know your content. But if you're struggling with your content, you can use Bertha to help write your content for you. I hope you like, subscribe, share, and follow. And I'll see you soon.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life, I never miss, that's fact, taking big swings, bitch, hand me the bat, put me in the ring.